Welcome to our fourth session, live session of TI Talks. Today we have a presentation by the Alliance to End Plastic Waste by Martin Tickner. I'll have a chance to present Martin in a second. The way it works is that we have about 20 minutes of presentation, and then you're most welcome to have a networking session. We'll have some questions, obviously. I want to also show you what we do on the stand, so that if you're just new today, we have a table where I have all the redesign work which we've been doing in the last years. There's been a lot of work done during the COVID time, and of course sustainability is a very key issue for us. So please ask any of our delegates, and you also have little QR codes. You can, if you find something interesting, you can take a picture, and then you can get the story of the behind the package and behind the redesign. If you're a bit, also if you're lacking exercise, we have a couple of bicycles, Peloton bicycles there. We invite you to join us, because for every kilometer that you will ride with us, we will make a donation for Turkey, for the people that suffered the earthquake. So you do good to you, and you do good to some people. So most welcome to the bicycles afterwards. We joined Taglif. We joined the APW about 2 years ago. We are members of a number of associations and a member of organizations because we want to be active. We think that it's only together that we can innovate. So that's why joining the APW is important for us, because we are joining the whole supply chain of the industry. Let me introduce Martin now in a second. So Martin, we had a brief talk. You have an impressive career, 43 years as a chemical and plastic manager. You've worked in the UK, you've worked in the US, in Singapore, you've worked in Hong Kong. In the latter part of your career, you were part of M&A initiatives. You also run a $2 billion organization. And then Martin decided to do good for the planet, and decided to be at the origin of the alliance with a number of other executives. And in 2020, you started this new career of trying to help curb plastic waste. So maybe you can tell us a bit more later about you, but a very impressive career, and a very interesting latter part of your career, trying to do something good and bring the supply chain partners together in this initiative. So Martin, I think it's now time for me to give you the word. So after the presentation, questions for sure. I have a couple of questions prepared, but I would prefer your questions to come in. And after that, networking, you're most welcome to stay with us for more talks. So, Martin.
Very good. Thank you, Patrick. Can you hear me okay at the back? It's okay. Good. So just building on Patrick's introduction there, the reason I joined the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, it's an incredibly complex problem. It has every dimension of technical challenge, economic challenge, political challenge, social challenge, and I love a challenge. So I've been with the Alliance now 3 years. We really are a very new organization. So 3 years ago, effectively a startup. We've come a long way in a very short period of time. So I will try and explain that today. So firstly, I want to say what I'm going to cover here is a little bit about the Alliance. So 3 slides just explaining the Alliance, who we are, what we do, because many people have not heard of us. Then I will go into talking about one of our theories of change, and in particular focus on the more developed countries and how do you drive a transition to a circular economy. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I will pick up on a couple of projects, and I think because we're here today with Taglif, then I will choose to look at a project which is talking about mechanical recycling of household waste into high-quality recyclates required for film applications. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that. But firstly, the title of the talk here is Accelerating Recycling in a Circular Economy. I do want to say that the Alliance believes fully in the waste hierarchy, so that means upstream solutions as well. So reduce where we can reduce, reuse where we can reuse, looking at new solutions, new supply chain models for reuse, but also substitution as well, where you can demonstrate substitution is clearly beneficial. But today I'm going to talk about recycling. And the first slide is just introducing the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. So we were founded at the beginning of 2019, but really until the beginning of 2020, the organization was run by volunteers from member companies. We didn't have a full-time organization. That came into place in 2020, more or less when I joined. What we do is, well, what we are, we're a non-profit organization, so technically a charity. That's really important to understand when you talk about the governance of the Alliance. So the member companies cannot dictate what a charity does. So they contribute to the funds that we have, but ultimately this is a CEO-led standalone organization responsible for addressing the mission for which we're funded. What we've done is we brought together almost 100 private sector companies across the full value chain, and working on developing solutions in particular. So this is really important. Focus of the Alliance is to address technical solutions, political solutions, economic solutions, social solutions that will help us to address the problems of plastic waste. And I'll define now, it will come up later, but plastic waste you can consider firstly in the context of leakage into the ocean, into the environment. So in particular those countries which are relatively new to the challenges of managing waste, not just plastic waste, but all waste, then the focus is really on very basic collection and very basic disposal systems. The second part of our agenda is really looking at circularity. Now on here you see the type of member companies that we have, the cross-value chain. I'm pleased that I note if we look at petrochemical companies, we're surrounded by them here. So there's Dow just over here, and there is BASF SABIC just here. So we have a number of the petrochemical companies, but you see the full value chain representation with brands like PepsiCo, like P&G, like Henkel. You see the converters, so Tagleaf, and I'm very happy to be here today and have the opportunity with Tagleaf. You see also Amcor, Berry, so some of the major converters in the value chain. Petrochemical companies, so Shell, Exxon, SABIC, Sinopec in China, SCG in Thailand, LyondellBasell in the Netherlands. And then also waste management companies, so companies like Veolia and Gemini, you see the waste management companies, an increasing number of recyclers as well. So we try and cover the full value chain in our representation. So that's the Alliance, a little bit about what we do. So I mentioned that we're really founded and operating since 2020. You see here just some of the locations of the projects, and the message of this slide is to say we're really a global organization. But again, the agenda will change depending upon whether it's the areas which have high leakage, and in those areas we'll be really focused on very basic infrastructure versus the more developed regions like North America, like Europe, like Singapore, where we'll be focused more on circularity. To date, we have about 60 projects in progress. We're adding them at the rate of 10 to 15 per year. But perhaps important to understand, our early projects were quite small. As we're going, they're getting larger and larger. So we have projects varying from $30,000 to $30 million, and that's increasing. You can see on the right, what do we do? Supporting the implementation of basic waste management systems, de-risking, demonstration of new technologies. And that's important to understand that the sweet spot for the Alliance, particularly in the transition to a circular economy, is a kind of first large-scale commercial implementation. So it's the point, they're not funding early R&D. We're not funding pilot plants so much, but really when somebody comes to build that first 20,000 ton plant, 30,000 ton plant, 50,000 ton plant, that's where we would look to have our intervention. De-risking projects, de-risking the funding of the activity. And we're also now in the process of launching a private equity fund. A private equity fund will then help us with the replication. So as we move from first commercial scale to now really looking at scale up and replication on a much bigger scale, we will be able to support that through the private equity fund. So to date, the Alliance has mobilized about $1.5 billion, expecting to be 1.7, 1.8 during the course of this year. So that's a little bit about what we do, the project portfolio. And just capturing that, the way we look at our impact is through 5 core focus areas. It just summarizes the things I've just said. Firstly, developing solutions. So looking at technical solutions, economically replicable solutions, and everything we do as the Alliance is looking for replication. Looking at enabling the ecosystem. Not a nice word, but it really talks about private and public partnerships and how we can address and bring people together in terms of understanding the issues, understanding the problems, and then looking at the solutions. Mobilizing capital. So that's really about the money that we get not only from the Alliance members, but also from various different sources, from development banks, from the development finance agencies, from private investors, from funds that we're managing as well. And those 3 together should help us then really to be able to start to address reducing, firstly, unmanaged waste, and secondly, capturing value from waste or driving circularity. And then, maybe important to mention, the result of our work is always going to have a benefit in terms of climate impact. Not our core focus, so we don't choose to do projects because of the climate impact, but it's a consequence of everything that we do. And similarly, social benefit. We're not focused on a humanitarian mission, but everything that we do will have a benefit for society. Not going to go through this slide in detail, but it's only to make one point, is that there are many solutions which are required. Lots of solutions, and we also believe it's somewhat of a journey. So starting from the bottom left of this chart and working towards the top right of this chart, and you can see building blocks in a very basic format here. Every one of these can take lots of different angles and lots of different dimensions, but essentially you see a journey from the bottom left to the top right. And different countries, different regions, at different stages of maturity on that journey. So that's important to understand when we're looking at solutions and where we can intervene. And I'll just give you an example, some examples of some of the major projects that we're doing. So this one, down in the bottom left-hand side here, because it's really focused on Indonesia. It's focused on a region where there is today no organized waste management of any sort. Not just plastic waste, but all waste management. So we're helping one regency in Indonesia. This is a $30 million project. It will tackle the scale of about 80,000 tons a year of plastic, 300,000 tons a year of municipal waste. And then we're working on the replication of that so that we'll replicate it 2, 3, 4 times. So this is probably the largest waste management project which has been ever undertaken. So it's a huge activity for us, huge focus. And success in Indonesia, I think, will then give us a model that we can use in the Philippines and we can use in other regions. So particularly proud of this. Second example I would give is just showing that there are many different types of solutions. So recycling, we're very familiar with. Construction applications, though, can often be a very powerful way, maybe not as circular as we would like, but a powerful way and an alternative to landfill and an alternative to waste to energy, which would help us to be able to get rid of streams which are difficult to recycle. So we're working with a company by the name of CRDC. They have an extremely elegant solution for taking mixed, commingled, contaminated, even plastic waste from hospitals, and to be able to convert that into a concrete modifier that can be used in structural applications. With a lot of CO2 advantages, so actually the process will absorb CO2, so it's clearly net negative. and it brings much improved characteristics to the concrete itself. This is a market which is 30 times bigger than the global plastic production. So it can be a very powerful solution for the suite. So we're engaged with CRDC at early stage, and we'll be working to help them to scale up. Coming now more to the right-hand side, the top right-hand side of the chart, here you see projects that you'll recognize more as European. So we are funding the Holy Grail Initiative. For those who are familiar with the Holy Grail Initiative, looking at the development of digital watermarks, not only as a way to be able to improve sorting, but as a way to be able to improve the identification of plastics for data reasons. So the product passport, for example, could be met by the digital watermark. It also potentially helps in different aspects as well. So this is a $6.5 million investment from the Alliance to support the industry in this particular application. And then last, and by no means not least, but a project that we're very much in the middle of, I mentioned this at the beginning, the project that was developed initially by C-Flex. So C-Flex developed a process that they called the quality recycling process, with the intention of demonstrating that you can take mixed household waste. And that's really the key. I want to emphasize household. So post-consumer can be household waste, but it can also be post-retail, post-commercial waste. And that's the majority of when you walk around the halls here and you see people showing PCR, then ask them where the PCR is coming from, because in most cases that PCR is coming from post-industrial, post-retail applications, sorry, post-commercial, post-retail. What we're looking at is taking household waste and being able to sort household waste, and then to be able to convert that through mechanical recycling into high-quality applications or recyclates that can be used for film purposes. So household waste into film-quality recyclates. And you see it's probably a little bit small there, but for example, shrink film, polyethylene stand-up pouches, polypropylene sealable pouches, closures, and wraparound labels. They're 5 of the applications where we're targeting being able to produce something with a high quality. Then I want to move on just a little bit. That's illustrating projects that we do. This is talking somewhat about our theory of change. So how do we drive the transition to a circular economy in a region like Europe or in North America or Japan? So one of the first things we see is there are lots of chicken and egg type situations. So people are not willing to invest in high quality segregated collection, which means there's no feedstock in recycling. So people don't invest in recycling because they can't get the feedstock. And that's one of the real peculiarities today, is we're awash with plastic waste. We have very low recycling rates, yet nobody can get the quantity of recyclates that they want. Feedstock is really a critical piece. So we need to work on improving the quality of the availability of quality feedstock. And I emphasize quality because all of our recycling processes, one way or another, need a high quality feedstock to be able to process. Another chicken and egg here is looking at the need to improve the quality of recyclates. So another very common view is that there isn't the value in recycling. I think many of the recyclers are struggling. They're particularly struggling at the moment because there is not enough value in recycling to be able to pay for the capital investments that they need. And at the same time, we have recyclates which are really not meeting the requirements of the brands or the converters. So again, you have this chicken and egg here of we don't have the adequate quality to be able to meet the needs of the brands. We need to work on that, find the ways to unlock it. And then another example, chicken and egg. You all know this one probably very well. Products are not recyclable. If you listen to any recycler, they'll always say they're so complex, they're not recyclable. And as a result of that, products are not recycled. Well, if they're not recycled, why should I trouble to change it to make it recyclable? Because it's not going to get recycled. So here is another case of a chicken and egg situation which we need to try and break. So for sure, there's a need for economic incentives. I think the European Union has many things here which is driving for economic incentives. and broader collaboration across the stakeholders. But still, I think we have a challenge in terms of how do we intervene to be able to accelerate this transition that we need. So the chart here is just talking about a number of areas which is a virtuous circle, that if we can get this virtuous circle moving, then it will be clear. And if we start, let me stay here. If we start with the demand for standardized, high-quality recyclers, that means making very transparent and very visible what are the needs, what are the top 10, the top 20 qualities of recyclers that if they were available, they would run into high demand and high value and high pricing to go with that. So really, what does the market need? In order to define that, we also need to define the kind of quality of products which are needed. So today, if you buy a virgin polymer, then you all know that they come in classes, in applications, and people know what you're buying. And they come with a data sheet and a spec sheet, and if you buy from different producers, there'll be some differences in them, but an awful lot will be very common. If you buy from a recycler, then it's much more bespoke. So it's much more the recycler has found a feedstock stream that they can use, and they've found customers that can buy that product and that they're meeting it accordingly. What we're working on here is to look at how can we define better kind of commodity set of recycler grades. What's the quality which is required for those? Believing that if we can do that, that will then help create a kind of market value chain pull. So if we're clear about the quality which is required, then we're also going to be much clearer about the type of technologies that are required. We'll be clear about the type of facilities, where those facilities need to be, what scale they need to be. So we can create this market pull from demand translated into quality guidelines, specifications, if you like, standardized grades, recycling technologies. Once we have that, it'll be much easier then to be clear about what the feedstock quality is that's required and what the logistics optimization is required. So today we're working a bit more with a push. So if you look at what is happening within the PROs, within collection, it is occurring in a way which is providing to recyclers, this is what's available, figure out how to use it. We need to try and turn that around so that the recyclers can really be clear, this is what we need, and we can create that pull. And then lastly, understanding that, we can then work on the design guidelines in order to make sure that products are better designed to facilitate this whole circle. It's not unique, so if you look at what the Circular Plastics Alliance is doing, and with the European Union under CENELEC, they have a very similar type of approach that they're working on here, but they're starting with design guidelines. So we thought we would start one further around there. So we're really working on identifying quality guidelines for commodity products. So we've already published a paper which is talking about what is the quality which is required for pyrolysis. Probably not particularly insightful because I think people largely understood the challenges of making a good feedstock for chemical recycling, low oxygenates, no PET, no PVC, etc. But I think what is coming very soon, and I think within the next few weeks, is some work that we've done on what we think the quality guidelines are for packaging. So for mechanical recycling, meeting the requirements of 4 grades that we've identified that we think would be high-quality recyclers that would meet a significant demand and command the type of value that we need. So that will help us to drive this circle. I'm going to finish with one slide here, just coming back on this Value Flex project. So this is focused on the area of recycling, so the bottom part here, recycling technologies and facilities, is endeavoring to demonstrate what will it take to take household flexibles waste and turn that household flexibles waste into a high-quality product that can be used in films. Not food grade, so we're targeting, believing that the quality may well be good enough for food grade, but we're not expecting in the first iteration here to be able to achieve EFSA approval. FDA, yes, EFSA, no. But for cosmetic applications, for example, we should be able to meet that type of requirement. So here what you see is the design of the plant. 4 lines. This is a 50 kiloton plant, 50 kilotons input that we're designing. 1 for high quality polyethylene, 2 for slightly lower quality polyethylene recyclers, and 1 for PP film. And then also providing feedstocks for chemical recycling, for injection molding, and maybe for specialized delamination, de-inking, those types of processes. But again, really important to understand, starting with household waste, flexible plastics bales. Yeah. Today not processed in the majority of European Union countries. As a result of that, we've believed that the pricing of that should be relatively low. So as we work through the process here, all existing technology, so there is nothing here which is considered to be revolutionary technology that may come in the future, but configuring it in a way that has not been configured before, in particular in sorting. So the sorting sitting behind this is really complex. Actually, 34 near-infrared sorters in series. That's what it takes. Where we are from a process point of view, so the Alliance is supporting a bid process in which we're encouraging potential owners and operators to come forward and say, we would like to be an owner-operator of this facility. And we have a consortium with feedstock suppliers, with off-takers, with companies like Tagli, for example, as an off-taker, and also parties that are willing to support in funding. So putting together consortia, those consortia are bidding, and at the end of the day, there will be support from the Alliance in terms of concession refinancing, and there will be support from CFlex, going right back to the origin of this project, who will be helping with product development and the technical evolution of the facility. So we're hoping to be able to build a plant which will demonstrate to people that, yes, you can do mechanical recycling from household waste into flexibles. And with that, Patrick, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. And the first thoughts that come to my mind when I see the complexity of recycling and the stakes, I think we're very happy to have joined the Alliance, because as a single player, we cannot achieve anything. We need to be part of a consortium. We need to be part of projects. And we need the power of the industry. And maybe you can tell us what are some of the next steps that the industry is taking about funding, if you may.
Indeed, thank you for the question. So the first comment I want to make, kind of just picking up on something Patrick said right at the beginning, but I heard very recently a company that said, if you want to do it quick, do it alone. If you want to do it well, then you need to do it together. And I think what we've seen with the Alliance is the power of the Alliance, is the full value chain representation, being able to bring together the views of upstream companies. Brand owners can think very, very differently to petrochemical companies, think very, very differently to recyclers and waste management companies. And trying to introduce some thinking across the whole value chain is quite a significant challenge. We're working our way through that now. And I think this is an area where, when I look at what the converters can do, for example, they can really help us with addressing the needs to understand quality in here, helping the recyclers in particular to understand quality and how to achieve quality. So those things are all possible. But Patrick's question was specifically directed at what are we doing in terms of next steps of funding. So we are very close to being able to further the funds that we have available by launching a private equity fund. We're hoping that will come within a matter of days, if not weeks, where we can demonstrate that beyond the money that the Alliance has already been able to mobilize through our member companies, is now we're really looking at private sector funding, at public funding, and how we can bring that together into a private equity fund, which will also help the Alliance. Today we do grants and we do concessionary loans as part of the de-risking. What we don't do is take equity positions. With the private equity, we will be able to take equity positions as well. So ValueFlex will be a very interesting example of that, because potentially that's something where companies will want to bring equity into the equation here.
Thank you, Martin. I guess my questions are not as good as your potential questions. So I'm asking you if you can participate, if you could have a question for Martin. Anybody volunteer? If not, Martin, I have another angle. If you were to, are you looking for new members? And because I see that you already have a big crowd present, or are you looking for different members? Are you looking for people that are more proactive?
Yeah, I think firstly, the more the merrier. So we would really like to see as much of the industry participating in this, again, for that reason that I said before, that together we can have much more impact, we can have much deeper impact. So to have more members is good. It is a complexity when it comes to governance, so we have a board already, and actually, Patrick, you will be at the board meeting coming up very shortly. We have a board now of more than 70 or 80 member companies there, so it does make it complex. But we would really like to see more membership across all the regions of the world, and including perhaps more in terms of the upstream sectors for the brands, for the retailers, and the downstream sectors in terms of the recycling, the recyclers in particular.
So maybe I can just finish with 3 initiatives that we are attempting to build with members of the APW, with the support of the APW. We have one initiative in Colombia, we have one initiative in Sohar, and we have one initiative possibly emerging in Egypt. So I don't want to say more before it's more built, more constructed, but we try to be proactive and join with the forces of the local industry and try to make something which is comprehensive. So with this, if you do not have more questions, if anybody, Martin, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for being with us. And for anybody here, please stay here and try to network with us. Thank you.
Thank you.